Hi there, I'm Mark Nahuson from New Life Guitars, coming to you from Brisbane, Australia. And I've just got a guitar here which I think pretty much sums up what I'm all about at New Life Guitars. Now this is a guitar which was given to me yesterday by a lady who has had it for over 50 years. She was 13 years old in 1973 when she got this Suzuki number 730. And it's literally been in her wardrobe for the last 30 years being unplayed, and she didn't know what to do with it and felt it really was not of a lot of value and wanted to see what we could do with it. And I'd say there'd be thousands of such guitars in wardrobes and under beds, if not millions of guitars around the world that are finely made instruments, particularly from Japan, from the 60s and 70s especially, but also into the 80s, which have now in many ways reached their prime in terms of their timbre. They were well made, but they often now suffer from the typical woes that seem to happen to classical guitars of that age. And what I notice about this guitar when I've had a close look at it is that it's got some of those problems. But the good news is the problems are fixable, and if you want to invest a little bit of time and effort into these instruments, you can restore them to a very nice, playable and beautiful sounding instrument. And in fact, when I picked up this guitar and was just playing it last night, it actually has a very nice tone, considering that the strings are as old as the guitar, according to the lady. So they're at least 30 years old, although the guitar is 50 years old. There's a lovely complexity to the treble. And the bass is actually very nice too. So I have a lot of optimism that this guitar is going to come up very nicely. So the problems that it has, I'll explain, and it's pretty typical. So the necks, because classical guitars don't have truss rods in them, some modern classicals now are having truss rods or stiffening rods built into them, but they're a little bit prone to neck movement, and this one has suffered the typical fate that happens to guitars of this era. And when you look down the neckline, from the 5th fret back to the nut kinks up a little bit, and which results then in a high action. So the action is rather high, between 5 and 6 mil, maybe even a little bit more. So the only way you would address that, what most people do, is to lower the saddle, and then the saddle gets lower and lower until it's so low that you can't lower it anymore, and then that reduces the tone. It causes other problems as well, but that is fixable. The other thing that this guitar has, where the neck meets the body, it kicks up a little bit as well. There's like a little bit of a ski jump there. So this actually needs to have the neck re-leveled and brought back to a more playable angle so that the saddle can remain nice and high, but yet the action can be retained at a level that makes it quite easy to play. The other issue that it's got is there's a tiny bit of belly bulge here, which is just causing a little bit of the bridge just to rotate forward slightly. But in conjunction with that, the saddle is actually a little bit loose, and I don't know if you can see it on the video, but it's actually leaning in the slot like that. So what that means, that results in an intonation problem where the tuning will go sharp because the break point on the edge of the saddle moves forward, so that the distance between the fingered note and the saddle becomes less, so the note becomes sharp. So this has got quite a nasty bit of sharpness to the intonation. So what I'm also going to do, I'm going to remove that saddle and replace it. I'm also going to widen the saddle slot and make the sides more upright so that a thicker saddle can fit in, sit nice and upright, and the wider saddle will mean that I'll be able to intonate it so that the break points for the respective strings will be able to come further back to improve that scale length from the fretted notes, which will give much better intonation. So I'm going to pull all the frets out. I'm going to plane the neck there and here, and I'm going to sand it with some It's nice straight sanding bar, so I'm going to get the neck nice and flat. The frets are barely worn at all, so I'm going to, if the frets come out quite easily, I'm going to put the same frets back in, which will be quite handy, and I'm going to restore it to a new life guitar. So to be continued.